So I don't ever remember hearing my father say, I love you to me. Now, I'm not complaining. I'm not criticizing my father. I have never doubted his love for me. When I was little, he used to tell my sister and me bedtime stories every night. He'd sit on the side of our bed and tell adventures of Halenga and Karenga. My sister's name was Helen. My name's Karen. And he would talk about the stories of Halenga and Karenga going around the world, discovering jungles in Africa and exploring the Amazon rainforest. My sister and I loved those stories and couldn't wait every night to hear the next chapter. As I got older, he would spend hours helping me with my homework, math problems, algebra, or proofreading my English essays. And today, because he can't tell me bedtime stories or help me with my homework, he's always offering money. Do you need any money? How are you doing financially? Here, take my credit card, buy something for yourself. But he never translates his love into the words, I love you. And I get it. He's 90 years old. By definition, he is old school. And men of his generation were not taught to show their emotions, to say, I love you. They were taught to get a job, bring home the bacon, support your family. And that's how he translates his love. And it's even was more so with his father. Years ago, when my grandfather was dying of liver cancer, my father went to the hospital to visit him. And I think they both knew it was the last time they'd ever see each other. But instead of hugging each other and crying and say, I love you, they talked about sports. That's how they had connected throughout their lives, going to see baseball games together, watching football games on TV. So as my father sat on the edge of his father's hospital bed, he said, you think the Yankees are going to get the pennant this year? My grandfather said, yeah, I think they're going to do it. Yankees were his favorite team. He said, put some money down on the Yankees. My grandfather was a huge gambler, loved betting on games, football games, baseball games, especially horse races. In fact, one time he bought a racehorse, and the first time the horse ever ran a race, he fell, broke his leg, and had to be shot. But that didn't stop him. He loved gambling. So he said, put some money on the Yankees. My dad said, I'm going to do that. Then my dad said, you know, what do you think your lifetime average has been? Throughout your life, how did you do? My grandfather, who could barely lift his head up, suddenly got a twinkle in his eye and furrowed his brow and said, you know, I think I broke about even. Yeah, I think that's it. I broke even. My dad nodded and said, you know, that's not too bad for a lifetime average. Breaking even, that's good. He leaned over and kissed my grandfather on the cheek, and they said goodbye. But they never used the words, I love you. Now, I will admit, I'm just as bad as my father and my grandfather. I think I've told my dad I love him at some point in my life, but I really don't remember. Like my father and my grandfather, I show my love, and I translate my love through actions by being there for the people who I love. My father lives in Columbia, Maryland, about an hour and a half away from here. And at least once a week, usually more than that, I drive down there, we have lunch, I go grocery shopping with him, I take him to the doctor's appointments, or I clean his apartment. And when we go out to lunch, I'll ask him about sports, because I know he loves sports. I don't care about sports at all, but I'm always asking him, how are the Ravens doing? How are the Orioles doing? Those are his teams. Because I know he wants to talk about sports. I always say, make sure to watch the game tonight. And my dad, in turn, says, how are you doing financially? And I'm always like, my 401k is great. I've got a lot of savings, equity in my home. It's doing wonderful, because I don't want him to worry about me. But we never say, I love you. And I will admit, in recent months, I've really wanted to say, I love you. I've had the words on the tip of my tongue. My father's been going through a lot of health issues lately. He was just diagnosed with Parkinson's, and we think he's starting to get dementia. And when I've gone down there and we're wrapping up things, I'm getting ready to head home, I've just wanted to say I love you to him. But I've been really terrified because it would be so out of character for me. And I'm afraid if I say, I love you, Dad, he would freak out. He'd be like, what's going on? What did the doctors tell you? Why are you saying you love me? So I never say it. And I have to say, if I heard the words come out of his mouth, I would be terrified. I'd think he'd given up on life. He was ready to off himself, or he's got full-blown dementia. So we never say it to each other. Now, with my brother, completely different story. He needs to hear the words, I love you, to feel he is loved. And years ago, he had a huge argument with my father. He's like, you never say I love you. I never felt you cared about me. And from that point on, now every time they have a conversation, my father ends the conversation by saying, I love you, Johnny. And my brother says, I love you too, Dad. But my father and I, we never say it. And so every time I drive down there, we have lunch and I clean his apartment. As I'm getting ready to get in my car and drive home, I say to him, Dad, don't forget to watch the game tonight. And he says, I won't. And he says, do you need any money? And I say, I don't. And I kiss him on the cheek and I say goodbye. Sometimes I love you can get lost in translation, but if you speak the same language, you never have to say the words. Thank you.